Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Mr. Dangler,
Here.
Mr. Vieira,
Here.
Dr. Vogt,
Here.
Councilwoman Dr. Selly will be absent this evening. Mrs. Wittes,
Here.
I hereby certify that this meeting has been published in the newspaper in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act and posted as required by law.
Thank you. At this time, we'd like to discuss the abandoned property ordinance. Mr. Renee?
Yes. I circulated we had a discussion at the last council meeting concerning the concept of adopting an ordinance for the registration of abandoned properties and the registration of vacant properties. I prepared a memo which I've now circulated to council outlining the legal basis for us doing that and also giving you a proposed ordinance if in fact council decides that you're going to do it. It's kind of a lengthy document that I wanted to make sure it was complete for this meeting. My suggestion is that council review it. I would also like to go through the process of talking to the city administrator and in our staff that would be handling the enforcement and actually implementing the ordinance to get their recommendations also. So, as I said, I outlined for you the last time the point of this is that we would like to begin to register abandoned and vacant properties so that we can then begin to go through the process. For instance, for abandoned properties, if we can't locate an owner and they're not being maintained, we can literally take them and get them back on the tax rolls. I think that's the whole purpose of it. The purpose with regards to vacant properties is for us to, understand who's responsible for maintaining them and to see, from an economic development point of view, what we can do to try to get those properties back to being occupied. So that's the whole purpose of it. It's part of it is information gathering, part of it is kind of lighting a fire under people who own these kind of properties. So, but the thing that I didn't do, and I did send it to Mr. Hayes, but he and I have not had a chance to talk. My suggestion is that code enforcement or whoever he thinks is the appropriate department to administer this sit down with the two of us, and then we could talk about whether or not the ordinance needs to be molded in any fashion. But you have the meat of it here in front of you.
Okay.
Any questions? Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Next, we were going to discuss the Central Monmouth County Active Shooter Partnership. Chief Roebuck, will you please come forward?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Good evening.
So I just wanted to catch you guys up on this and give you a little information and just ask for it.
Jay, could you?
The work?
It was.
Oh, yeah. Let me just talk about it. There. And just ask for your approval before we get into this. So the active shooter partnerships started with the Southern Monmouth County Active Shooter Partnership 3 or 4 years ago, started in Neptune City, Neptune Township, and they got together a few of the towns, and they started working on active shooter response together. Most departments do their own, they only train with each other. The concept is if something happens in a town near us, we're going to go, right? Because they only have 10 guys, 12 guys, 14 guys. We have a lot of guys. And if something happens here, even though we have a lot of people, they're still going to come here and help. So they started doing that probably 2 or 3 years ago. It grew to about 13 towns, and they formed the Southern Monmouth County Active Shooter Partnership. The Bayshore then got into the act, and they formed the Bayshore Active Shooter Partnership with another 10 towns. Earlier this year, they started to form the Western Monmouth County Active Shooter Partnership with Freehold Borough, Colts Neck, Howell, those kind of towns. And the last one would be the Central Monmouth County Partnership with about 14 towns around here. They asked us and me to kind of take the lead in this. I've had a lot of experience in this over the last 20-something years, so they asked us to take the lead in this. What it is we sign an agreement and a partnership to purchase things together. Everybody puts in a specified amount of money each year. It's not a lot. We kind of pool all that money together. We also apply for grants from the county and from Homeland Security, and we get those grants and we buy simunition equipment, which is the paintballs that we shoot, and other equipment used for active shooter training. And each month, you would go to a different location within the active shooter partnership. One month we do it here in Long Branch, the next month we do it in Eatontown and wherever, and we'd move it around so our guys would know where to go if something happened there, and they would know their schools, and they would come here, and they would know what to do here. It's all instructed by instructors that have been taught by the county SWAT team that I was on, so everybody is taught the same way. The way now, it's each town kind of does it on their own, so it's close to the same way, but it's not really the same way, and they don't know each other and know what they're really going to do. So this way, everybody knows what they're going to do, everybody's on the same page, everybody's taught the same thing, everyone kind of gets to know each other, and they get to know each other's schools where they may go at some point. So that's the real quick down and dirty of what it is. I've been working with the city attorney to get the paperwork through. I just wanted to make sure you guys were okay with us doing this and joining this and leading this active shooter partnership.
Jay, this is an existing partnership, or you're creating a new one?
We're forming a new one.
And who else is being asked to join this group?
About 14 towns in this area, Eatontown, Long Branch, West Long Branch, Shrewsbury, Monmouth Beach, Oceanport, Ocean Township, Seabright, Little Silver, Rumson, Deal, and Allenhurst, and Monmouth University. So all of them will be in the central. We're the last 14 or 15 towns left that aren't in a partnership.
Do you have any idea, like statewide or some of the other groups, like how much these communities contribute?
We're gonna set it so, but it's probably gonna be $1,000 a year. It's not a huge financial obligation, and it probably wouldn't start until next year. So we'd be able to look at our budget for next year before we do it.
Just so that council understands, the other part of this is that the city will become now the lead agency for the purchase of certain items, right?
Correct.
So you and I, we've been working on this, and we kind of got to the point where my questions were, what is it exactly we're going to be buying? How is that going to happen? So I need to understand so that our purchasing department will now be responsible for,
Right.
and there has to be some mechanism for the payment from other municipalities.
Correct.
So why don't we talk about that?
And I have all that. They have what they've been doing in the other ones, and they have the bank records, and I can show you what they've been buying. It's mostly simunitions, the paintball stuff, anything to do with training. Sometimes we'll buy the fake guns that we use to shoot the simunitions, that kind of stuff. Vests, headgear, hand gear, anything to do with that kind of training. That's pretty much all they buy with it.
But that's not a cost to the city though. So that is, we're just, for instance, we would do the we would do the purchasing, except that they would be paid for by whatever we purchase for use for the city employees, we would pay for, and then whatever was done by the other. But I just wanted to make sure that,
Right.
because what you're going to see, the approval that you're going to see, or at least one of the documents we're going to ask you to approve to do this program, is a joint purchasing agreement.
Right.
Where the city is going to become the lead agency for those purposes. And obviously, we'll make sure that we have this, the chief and I are having discussions about things like us being indemnified and protected against any claims arising out of something that, an action by a different agency and those things. So we still have to get through the details of all of that.
Who will be writing the grants? Who will be writing the grants that you spoke about?
I don't know. I know there's grant money available from the county working group. We had a meeting with them several months ago when we started discussing this, and I don't know if there's a specified grant proposal that has to happen, but if there is, one of our guys here will do it, or I could get someone from one of the other police departments to do it and write the grant and put it in for us. But I don't believe it's that much of a heavy lift. They've given the other 3 of them money. I forget, I don't know how much off the top of my head, but every year they've been able to give them some money from from them to be able to purchase some items.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
So how dependent is it on the grant funding? Let's say it doesn't go according to plan.
It's not totally dependent on the
Yeah.
grant money. It's, you know, each town is going to give some money too, so we can do that. And each town already has a lot of this equipment.
Okay,
So we're gonna have to sit down, and once we get this going, I'm gonna have to sit down and see what everybody has and kind of look at it and say, all right, here's what we need to go forward. But I know these guys, I know a lot of the other chiefs from these towns, and they have equipment that probably for the first 3 or 4 months until we get up and running, everyone's gonna use their own equipment anyway, you know?
Yeah.
We have stuff that we've had here for years, so it's not completely dependent. It's not all about just getting the money and getting the things. It's about actually us working all together so we all know where to go and kind of what to do together.
Yeah.
The money's a nice aside to it, but it's not the main,
Yeah.
it's not the main focus.
so you kind of started by saying you wanted to make sure that it was okay.
Yeah.
It kind of almost seems like, you know, a no-brainer that it's, you know, it was certainly we would want to do it, and certainly to have Long Branch in leadership role is outstanding. So that kudos to you. That's great that your experience is recognized with it. So just like kind of consistent with the way the questions are going, is there anything that we're going to be surprised with? You know, we know the documentation that we need to have. Is there some impact that we would not kind of be noticing at this point?
Not that I know of. The other towns have been doing this for 3 or 4 years, and they haven't had a problem. So it's something that has been working. No one's had an issue with it. So I don't see any surprises
Okay.
showing up that I can see. But to your first point, I said the same thing. You know, when they came to us about this, and I met with the other chiefs, 13 and 4, and we all said, why would you not want to do this?
Right.
Why would you not want to get
Yeah,
together and do
yeah.
this? You know, who's the guy that's going to be like, no, I don't want to do that. That doesn't sound right.
Yeah, good.
The other thing about it, Chief, I know a little bit about this program in different parts of the county. Will there be an I know in some municipalities, they've incorporated the governing body and department heads and stuff in some of the training exercises so they could see what happened
Absolutely.
and all of those kind of things. I found it to be very informative. It's good for the, you know,
I agree.
the mayor and the council understand, you know, what would happen if there was an active shooter in a school here or in the municipal building or at the beach, or so they have an idea as to, you know, how that. I mean, I think it's important. It's informative.
I agree. And so we have an open invite for the Southern Monmouth County one. They send me what they're doing every month, and, you know, we can come. So if anybody wants to come and see how that's run, they're programmed down, and it's usually in Neptune City or Bradley Beach. We could go to any one of those until we get up and running. You could definitely come to ours once we start. We're looking for September, October, even if we don't have all this done, at least to start getting all the people together and the training. And we will run our own active shooter, like we do every year, for probably 2 weeks. I believe it's the beginning of November. So anybody can come to that. And when we get closer to that, I can invite you guys to come out to that if you'd like to see that. And this year we're doing it in the STARS training building out in Freehold. They have a building that the sheriff put together just for this training.
Okay.
Anyone else?
No, this is a work session.
I'm sorry, I'm just the etiquette. This is
Yeah.
my first council meeting.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Jason? Thanks.
Okay. Now, Mr. Hayes, would you kindly give us an update on North Fifth Avenue, please?
Yes, ma'am. We're making significant progress since the last meeting when the engineer was here and reported to you. The roadway has been base paved and was open to vehicles last Friday. The curbs and sidewalks have been installed. The contractor is currently doing the yard restoration on the properties located near the right-of-way where the grade had to be changed and replacing walkways and driveways. This will continue for the next 3 days. They anticipate Thursday, Friday, and Monday. They're hoping to be finished up with all that restoration work on Monday, and they're scheduled to mill the road from Halberton Street to Broadway, except the area that we just did, will all be milled, and then the whole road will be top-coated on Wednesday. We've already milled and paved from Halberton Street north to Atlantic Avenue. That part of the project is finished. And this schedule, of course, is predicated on the weather cooperating with us. We did encounter a number of rain days in the last 2 weeks, so it's been frustrating, but we've been able to make contact with many of the residents, and we're trying to accommodate everyone the best that we can, and it's been going pretty well.
Any questions?
It's great to hear the progress. What kind of communication has happened with the residents, just knowing what we were dealing with before?
I've been on the site every day the last 2 weeks. I know the mayor's been there as well, and we've spoken to, I know I've spoken to 3 or 4 residents in Merrim. I'm sure you've had conversations with several others.
Okay.
You haven't spoke to a gentleman by the name of Wilson Benila, has you?
Say the name again, sir?
Benila, Wilson?
I have not, no.
Okay, because he called me up and something about his driveway that they just cracked and they just put some kind of blacktop over it.
When did he call you?
Last week.
Okay, so have you spoken to him since?
No, I haven't, but I did pass by and I saw all new concrete, so maybe
So
I'll
it
just...
probably was resolved then?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, if not, just please let me know and I'll be happy to contact him and go out and meet him.
Yeah, I passed there on the way here today, this afternoon, and it looks like they poured all new concrete sidewalks, so
Good.
that might be the part of it.
Okay,
Thanks, Kev.
thank you.
I think, Anita, to answer your question, I think when progress is being made on a daily basis, I think it's kind of understandable. I think it's, as we experience when things have slowed down, that people really want to know
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah, you're right. When they see people working, I mean, they know that we're doing the best we can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we're going to discuss employee recognition. During our campaign, and also when we were talking about our 100-day plan, we thought it would be nice to recognize the employees in the city for all their hard work. And so I wanted to bring it up for discussion, to get your views on it, and would like to, then move forward, because we have so many employees, and I know how hard everyone works, and it'd be nice to, build up morale and, let them know that we just don't take it for granted. So, any...
I think that's a great idea, to tell you the truth. And once the employees feel comfortable at work, and there's a reason they want to come to work, and maybe to have them appreciate that they're being recognized by the end of the month or once a month or something like that. I think that's a great idea on my part.
Yeah, and I thought, Bill?
Yes, I agree that it is a good idea, but I received a phone call about a week ago, and I did pass that information on to you, the president, and certainly the mayor. Former employees, and to be blunt, if I'm out of line, council, please let me know, but Johnny Ferrara's son called and asked if we could just recognize his father for all the work that he did and the way he was let go or left the city in regards to city employment. I just told him that I would bring it up. But either way, I do think recognizing the employees is a great idea.
So we have to come up with guidelines as far as, who will recognize and how often, who will recommend them. I was thinking that, the department heads meet and possibly they could come to the meeting with some recommendations. They know their employees better than we do. So I thought maybe if they came up with some recommendations, we could, get a little bio from those recommendations and then review them and, select someone. And, do we want to recognize past employees at this time? It's, something we need to discuss as well. I just,
I think, in my opinion, I think right now we should stay with the present. You know what I mean? Because past, we weren't there to find out what's going on. I think we should just stay with the present and go forward with that. It's my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, I feel the same way. I think, you know, at this time, I think it's important to recognize those who are currently working for us. And, okay, so do I have, you know, does everyone, you know,
Yes.
agree to move on with this?
I agree.
Okay, then we'll write up some guidelines and, you know, we'll discuss it and run it by everyone. Thank you.
I think it might be a good idea also to see how maybe other municipalities
Right.
do the same thing, as well as maybe organizations in general.
Okay,
But it's a great idea.
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, and then next, we talked about having a town meeting, and I wanted to discuss a possible date and place for a September town meeting so that we can meet with community members and, you know, get feedback from them and, you know, let them know what's going on. And so I was wondering, is there a particular date that everyone would like to meet?
You want to do this like during the week, during the day, or do you want to do it on the weekend?
It's up to you. I'm just, you know, I'm open to whatever, you know, you feel.
For me, it's tough during the week, 'cause I work kind of far, and, you know, but I'll go with what the majority goes with.
How
But
about
for me-
evenings? Are you,
Evenings, I'm good. Anytime after 5, I'm good.
yeah. I mean, I would think that a evening during the week would probably work because, you know, most people work during the day, so we want to make it convenient as much as we can. John, do you have any?
I would suggest definitely a weekday evening.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, yes.
All right, so
Just
we
about
need,
any day except for Friday, because people,
right,
a lot of things to do
Yeah.
after the long week at work, so I'm in support of any day, Monday through Thursday.
how about like a Thursday night?
Maybe like a Wednesday, Thursday, they usually have the concert at the Pier Village.
Okay.
But we can do that, maybe
Are they
with,
still going on in?
they go until,
They
No,
end
it's over
Labor
by
Day, right?
September.
They'll be over.
Oh, yeah.
They'll be over.
When?
The concerts are done by beginning of September.
but then in
Yeah.
September, yeah, so we're
Okay.
good then.
Yeah.
All right, so,
So Rose, you know, what might be a good way to look at it is if we, how often do you want to have them? Did you
well,
say?
I'd like to, if possible, we're gonna have one in September,
Uh-huh.
and then I was thinking maybe November.
Okay. Well, I agree, weekday evenings, I think, are the best, and I would move them around too, different,
Yes.
different
Different
locations.
locations.
Right. I mean, we can do one September at one place, maybe one October at another place, and one November. But then after that, you're getting into the holidays and
Right.
things like that. So, what do you think about that, John?
I think it's fine. I think it just needs you know, there's a lot of holidays, Jewish holidays in
Right.
September also, so I want to be considerate of that as well.
Okay, okay, yes.
And
Absolutely.
November is a tough month, too, with holidays in the league and municipalities also.
Oh, November?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, well,
Let's do this one, the first one, see how it turns out.
Yeah.
okay.
And we'll make a
So,
call for the second one.
John, do you have a particular date that you think will work?
No, I'll tell you what doesn't work.
So you want to do it
You got
like,
your calendar in
Yeah.
front of you?
Uh-huh.
so does someone want to give me a date? So-
Yeah, I want to look at the calendar and see what's going on here.
Okay.
Well, you want to start looking, like, maybe, let's say, the third week, second or third week of September, you know, let school start, let things settle down a little bit?
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Well, we
Maybe
go
the-
to the 20th or 27th.
27th is the last day beyond, or the date that doesn't seem to conflict is September 27th, just trying to be helpful.
September, thank you. Does September 27th look good?
That looks good for me.
That's fine.
It's good for me.
You know what? It's good. Is there anything a little bit earlier? You want to wait that long?
Well, you know what,
Do we have-
kind of, because then they have all the open houses in the schools. So I think maybe we'd be better off doing it
Let the
the
school
end of
settle.
September.
Okay, okay.
So, all right, so let's put it down for September 27th.
Okay.
And where would you like to have the first meeting?
Any
I was
places?
thinking, well, first I thought the senior center,
Right.
but I was told that would not be a good choice. So, what about, the middle school, if it's available? The auditorium in the middle school?
Yeah, that sounds good, or one of the schools. Doesn't have to be the middle school,
Because,
maybe.
well, I was thinking that was centrally located,
Uh-huh.
or the high school, or, you know.
Yeah, middle school sounds good.
Okay. All right, well, we'll find out, middle school, maybe even the old high school.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
Maybe we can do it there, because they have the auditorium, which they, we could use, that they want to open it up to the public as well. So, might be a good idea. I'll find out if that's available.
And what's nice about that is that we won't have setup kind of concerns,
I'm sorry?
beforehand. What's nice about that is we won't have setup kind of concerns with chairs and
Oh,
doing
yeah,
all that kind of
exactly.
stuff, so
No,
that'd be
we'll
good.
have everything there. So,
Yeah.
okay, so I'll,
And just let the clerk know, because she's going to have to do a notice,
okay,
publish.
And what time were you thinking about, Ross?
7?
Okay, that sounds
7
good.
o'clock?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, good. And then we'll have to set a date for the next one. So if everyone can let me know when, what date in October would work for you, we'll do that as well. Maybe like 1 month later, we can do that if it works. Okay, then next item is reports from City Council. Mr. Dangler? Do you have any reports?
Yes. I met with a gentleman who was a part of Fair Share Housing Organization, and he informed me, I actually was at my NAACP meeting, but he informed us and me that the city of Long Branch, along with its 3 other municipalities, filed a disclarement judgment to protect us from being sued in regards to development or lack thereof.
So, actually, it's not 3 municipalities. So, as a result of the Supreme Court, this Mount Laurel 4 decision in 2015, every municipality in the state, with the exception of those who have no affordable housing obligation, meaning the urban aid municipalities, all filed declaratory judgments. Long Branch does not, under the Mount Laurel doctrine, actually have an obligation. So your declaratory judgment case is really for the approval of your spending plan for affordable housing funds.
But I was under the impression, certainly, you can correct me, that there are opportunities for us to add in affordable housing, low-income housing.
Well, the answer is yes. You certainly could. You have the right to zone for that. You're just, the declaratory judgment action under Mount Laurel doesn't really apply to you because you don't have an obligation. But you certainly, in adopting your zoning ordinances and adopting the housing element of your master plan, can certainly zone for affordable housing.
Why don't we have an obligation, sir?
You don't have an obligation because you are an urban aid municipality, and because under the calculations for, according to a recent court decision, there's essentially a 159,000 unit obligation across the state, none of which is allocated to Long Branch. And I guess, and the sense of that is that Long Branch is not an exclusionary municipality. It has affordable housing in it. It also has a housing stock that, the purpose of Mount Laurel is to stop towns that zone out low and moderate income housing. That's not what's happened in Long Branch. So they recognize places like, big urban centers like Newark, for instance, that they don't have a Mount Laurel obligation because they're not traditionally not exclusionary places. So that's why. So I actually have stepped into your affordable housing case, and the only purpose of you having filed a declaratory judgment is to allow for you to get approval of your spending plan.
Okay, I'll do a little more research on that.
Yeah, I'm happy to sit and talk to you. I know that I saw your inquiry about whether or not we have a set-aside ordinance, and I'll take a look and see whether we do, but certainly it's something that you can do. I mean, it's not.
Right, that was.
You know, there's legal obligations and moral obligations, so certainly, you know, we can talk about how it is that we satisfy that. Long Branch is actually the recipient of, there was a time when municipalities were allowed to enter into regional contribution agreements, and Long Branch actually got money from Middletown, and they used it to rehabilitate 156 homes that then became affordable. So Long Branch is actually one of those places that was a recipient when that program was in place. Those are no longer legal, but in this round, in the second round, Long Branch was a recipient.
Okay. No, my concern is, we talk about affordable housing, and a lot of people forget that when we're talking about affordable is one level, but there is low, moderate, and very low income.
Sure.
And that's what we need to look at, because you know, Long Branch is a melting pot, and we want to make sure that everybody can, hopefully, everybody that is gainfully employed will be able to afford to live here in Long Branch.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm good. I don't have anything. I just got back. Go ahead, Annie.
So I have some stuff, actually, with a handout. So this is, you know, I think I'm probably going to make everybody crazy with this 100-day plan. But, you know, I mean, this is what, this is out there. This is what people are going to be looking at and their expectations of us. I have one. So the first thing that you're going to see, and it's in green, so that when you put it in all the hundreds of papers that we, you know, have all along the way, just look for that green one, and it can kind of always stay. You know, this is important. This is important. So what I did, I tried to make it as simple and clear-cut as possible. This is the version of the 100-day plan that Will was really helpful in terms of putting it on the website for us. And you can see it's divided up into the 5 main areas. You all know, I mean, we've talked about the 100-day plan 100 times. And so I just tried to put this in the version that we can always refer to. Okay, so that's one handout. The second handout, again, just because, you know, there's so much everydayness that's going to take us away from the bigger pictures that, you know, the big things that we're trying to accomplish with the 100-day plan. So I'm always, you know, I'm the note taker out of the group. And so I'm always kind of looking at how we keep track of what we're doing, because I think it's important that we periodically report out on the status of things and let people know what our priorities are and where we are with that. So on this document, okay, I know it makes your eyeballs spin for a little bit, but so let me talk it through for 1 second. I took one of the priorities is promote economic development. So I took just that one. I actually have the whole plan written out this way, but just to show you what this is, I took just that one, and that first column is exactly what you see on the 100-day plan. So we said we were going to start Shop Long Branch. We said we wanted to look for ways to promote local businesses. We do a review of all city-owned redevelopment and focus on Lower Broadway. That's what we have on our plan. The middle column, and you don't worry about ever having to do this. I mean, I'll keep track of everything, okay, but you just need to keep telling me things that you're working on so I can keep putting this in here. The middle column is ideas and comments, because you know we've been talking about these things for months. Rose, you're going to remember, for example, you know, start Shop Long Branch rewards program. Well, what were some of the other economic perks we thought we might be able to consider? So we had a conversation about, is there anything in terms of beach passes that we might be able to do? Is there anything in terms of age requirements that we might be able to do? So these things are listed in this second column, just so we don't forget the freshness that we had, way back when. And then the last column, and this is where it becomes important that we keep the communication going, is, what's the status report? Because I think at any given time, it's reasonable that, that we put this out to the community and say, well, what are the things that we actually worked on? So that is, that's where that will go. And like I said, I'll do this. So don't worry about having to do any of this stuff. But I just wanted you to know that the document exists. So I don't know, any feedback, any thoughts, any whatever?
No, I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
Okay, let me show you one other thing that works with this. And so go to the middle column, ideas and comments, and you see that first, midway down where it says Monmouth County Planning Board, planning assistance. So what you can do with this software program is you can link to documents. So, we know at some point we got some information about planning assistance, but where did we put that document? Where is it filed? All that kind of stuff. You can, in this program, I can put links into the documents directly. So if you look at the second page for just a minute, and you'll see it starts off, it says the first link goes to an email that we received from Kathy about assistance that we can get from the Monmouth County Planning Board, which we actually followed up on, and we have a meeting scheduled, to discuss how we might be able to work with them and any sort of assistance that they can give us. So let me just show you two other links. There's another link that links to, it says update the city master plan, and it links to the finance transition report. The transition reports that we got were amazing. They were really outstanding. And so on this one in particular, the finance transition report spoke specifically to the master plan. So you can see the second link says, well, people volunteered, people did a lot of work on those transition reports, and we read them, and we're using them to guide what we do. So that's there. And then just real quickly, the last one on the bottom just says create jobs. And on the back, this links to a grant that was made available through UEZ Clean and Safe Community Initiatives. It's a job creation kind of thing. So the reason why I'm saying this is that that this kind of record keeping and monitoring, can exist. Okay?
Thank you.
Good work, Anita.
Okay, good. Okay, can I just do a few other real quick ones? Let me tell you about this one. You remember early on, this is all written, but this was before this was even passed. There was this civic information bill. This goes back, I'm going to say, let me not quote the month, but it's like a $20 million initiative that was being put forward. Senator Gopal was very supportive of this, and very fortunately, this recently was enacted. And so right now, we have already reached out to Tanya Garcia in the library, and we're looking at a partnership with the library and with Brookdale to be able to tie into this. So that was great that we were able to make that happen. And let me just make one other announcement, not really an announcement, but just encouragement. And this has to do with the Family Addiction Network. You know, we have as one of our initiatives on the 100-day plan is to support in whatever way we can, you know, the opioid epidemic. And I think we all struggle to kind of figure out what we can do to actually, what we can do to address it. The Family Addiction Network had reached out to us a few times, and we wanted to follow up our commitment to them. They meet every third Tuesday. Their next meeting is August 21st, which is a meet and greet kind of pizza party kind of thing. For as many of us as could go to that, I think it would be wonderfully supportive of that organization, and also I think tremendously helpful for us just in terms of trying to figure out how we can really start to make a difference.
Where's that at?
You know, they meet at the community center. I'll give you the information. I know it's, I can't think of the road names though. John, that's
It's the West Long Branch Community Center.
okay, yeah.
The one on North
It's at
Locust?
7 o'clock, if I'm not
Locust
mistaken.
Avenue.
Yeah. So those things. And if you want to write another date down, write down September 20th, from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. We have an opportunity to participate in the New Jersey TV series In Your Neighborhood, and they would like to have the mayor and council there to interview and discuss some of the issues that we're dealing with. I'll give you more information about that. That meeting is going to meet. They're going to meet on the second floor of the Brookdale Long Branch Center.
What time?
6 to 8, September 20th. So that's it.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
And John and I met with New Jersey Rep last week, and it was very enlightening, and they want to move forward and build on, you know, the repertoire theater there and encompass bringing children into students to help them, you know, build the sets and, you know, provide the arts education to students. And it was very, very informative, and I was wondering if you would be interested in us having them come here and present to us at some point in the near future at one of our workshops, so we can listen to, you know, what they have to say. John, do you want to enhance?
Well, it was a very interesting presentation that they gave us individually. We both thought it would be good to present that to the rest of the council as well as the community in general. But, you know, as Rose said, you know, and Rob, I think you're involved with them as well, but, you know, we're very interested in getting our youth involved in some of these activities perhaps that they have, whether it's acting or they're talking about stage construction. And my understanding is some communities like Carteret, where they have active theaters and so forth, they get the kids very involved. And I think it could work positively because there are a lot of grants out there for, let's say, a theater company that has an educational component with the community involved. So I think it's a great idea, and I agree with the council president that they should make a presentation to us.
Thank you. And Mayor Plum, do you have anything you'd like to discuss?
No, I just wanted to thank Councilwoman Vogt for the work that you did with this. Mr. Reno, perhaps you could, you know, there's been a lot of questions about the master plan, and Anita, actually, I think you made the arrangements for us to get the assistance from the county. Lou, can you just talk a little bit about the master plan and the obligation that we have and the desire that we have as well? Kevin, what is that? That's a couple of years, I think we have.
I'm sorry, sir?
A couple of years, the master plan, we have to redo the master plan.
It's 7, Carl?
The entire master plan was completed in 2010. What we have to do is every 8 years, what we have to do is a re-examination of the land use section of the master plan. begun by the planning, actually it was initiated as an approval from the previous city council for the planning board to begin that process. We want to continue that process and finish that of doing a re-examination of the land use section of the master plan. The only thing we're waiting for right now is for new members of the planning board to be named, so we can put them on, some of them on the committee. We're allowed 3 members on the committee, so that we can make recommendations on the master plan to the city council.
So, so understand the master plan is a planning board document, right?
Okay.
The hearings are done, the adoption of all of that is done at the planning board level, and the purpose of that is, you know, the planning board is deemed to be kind of the experts in your zoning ordinance, and they'll deep dive into it and essentially make recommendations. The land use element of the master plan is the recommended zoning for all of your for all of the city. It's at that point in time that the council gets their hands in it, because the council then has to make a determination as to whether or not they'll amend the zoning ordinance to conform to those provisions of the master plan, and if they don't conform with the provisions of the master plan, they have to specifically give the reasons why they don't. But it is the re-examination of the master plan zoning element, and then the subsequent rezoning is where council will have now its impact on, and I saw in your 100-day plan, you know, reviewing those kind of elements to see, now that you have a 10-year, or, you know, the last 8 years has been seeing a lot of changes in town with regards to, for instance, redevelopment. You now see what redevelopment is there, how it is that it's impacting other neighborhoods, and you can now begin to look at where it is going in the next 8 years. And, you know, it's kind of the roadmap for where your zoning and development is going to go. So it's not something that is a process that should be taken lightly. I recommend the council, if there are hearings or there are reports that are issued by the planning board, you should go and hear them and see what's being discussed at that point in time. I'm sure that the city planner is doing who is doing the initial report, Carl?
Well, the planning board will do the review, but we still need some members to come on to continue the process.
But who is the planning consultant that's working with them?
Mazer Consulting is the consultant.
So, you know, there'll be planning reports and recommendations that are done too, and so it's important to be part of the entire process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Could I just add one more thing, and this is a thank you from Council President Rose and myself to Chief Robach for taking us on a tour of the police department, which was extraordinarily informative and helpful. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
And there is an added agenda item, the Long Branch Sewage Authority Service Agreement.
Well, yes, we can do that now. Council President, it actually involves a number of items that are on your agenda as resolutions. Yeah. And we have here tonight Jason Capizzi, who is bond counsel to the Sewage Authority. So the items that you have on your agenda are, I guess it's 172-18 through 176-18. And this is Jason Capizzi. He's the bond counsel to the Sewage Authority. Essentially, the authority is asking the city to consent to a number of financing that the authority is going to undertake. Understand that there's a kind of a basic document that is the service agreement between the city and the Sewage Authority, under which the Sewage Authority operates, provides sewer services to the city's residents. So Jason, if you could kind of take it from there.
Mr. Capizzi, could you just, microphone, thank you.
Thank you, Lou. Hello, Mayor. Nice to see you again. Council members, nice to meet you. My name is Jason Capizzi. I'm with the law firm Winnie Banta, Bisraelian & Kahn, and I'm bond counsel to the Sewage Authority. As Lou said, yes, the Sewage Authority has determined to undertake 5 individual projects. They're going to be financing them through a state financing program called the New Jersey Infrastructure Bank. It used to be called the New Jersey Environmental Infrastructure Trust. In 2002, the city entered into a service agreement with the Sewage Authority in order to enhance the security that the Sewage Authority's bonds hold. All right, so real simply, what does that mean? When the city issues its bonds or notes, it's secured by your geo pledge, your ability to promise the market that you will tax all your citizens, regardless of rate or amount, should you need to. A sewerage authority, though, they are revenue bonds, so they're secured by the revenues that are generated from the authority. The market regards that as a lesser level of security. So what the service agreement does, it says, okay, sewerage authority, we want your services. We also want you to be able to borrow at the cheapest rates possible. So we promise to extend our geo pledge to your debt that you issue. And if ever you run into a shortfall, you're unable to pay it back, we'll advance you the money. But once you get those revenues, then you're going to repay us that money. So this is a mechanism that's been in place under the Sewerage Authorities law since like 1946. So it's something that's very common. And it's just, again, it's a credit enhancement. Now, when you borrow through the state's program, they have a really high credit rating. So when they see that a service agreement is in place, they're trying to do everything to protect their credit rating. So they want to see that the borrowers, the authority, is going to have the maximum security that's available. Is that clear? Any questions?
Can you just for the council's edification, can you just give us an idea as to what the projects are?
Okay, so you have presented 5 individual resolutions. And you have to forgive me, because my engineering experience is limited. So what are they doing? They're 5 individual projects in the aggregate amount not to exceed about $6.9 million. And one of them is for they term the Sanitary Sewer Railroad Crossing Study and Improvements Project. I believe that they're going to investigate the integrity of the system below the railroad crossings at certain points throughout the city. There's another one, the Sludge Thickening System Improvement Project. So again, these project descriptions.
They're enhancements to the treatment plant to make it more efficient.
Various other ones, yes.
Right.
And I tried to do them in layman's terms and that the engineers sign off that they have their ability to do that. There's another one, inflow infiltration study improvements. That's in part primarily they go through the system and they look for leaks. And they clean it, they line it. If they're able to minimize those leaks, it makes for a better, more efficient system. Additional, if the pump station force main improvements, the force main is a specific type of equipment. And the hot water system and final settling tank improvements, same thing, additional equipment at the main plant that is just equipment upgrades. Forgive me, I can't go into greater detail, but those are the same descriptions that are in the authority's bond resolutions authorizing each of them.
So we're basically backing their bond?
Well, you back their bonds by the fact that you have a service agreement. So the city's already pledged that. All you're doing is now, each time they do a financing, you have to then consent to it again. What you're really doing is you're representing to the state. The infrastructure trust is an interesting bank of money that the state puts together. The sources of it are very interesting, like the Exxon Valdez money found its way into the New Jersey Infrastructure Trust when it got distributed to the states, and then the state uses it to lend out to municipalities. It's kind of like a revolving fund. So they have pretty strict guidelines, but one of the things that they want to know is they want you to basically reinforce for the state that there is a service agreement and that you will abide by your obligation. So they require you to technically do that each time.
It's actually access to federal, there's a federal component and then there's a market rate component, and there's 2 loans. One is at usually 0% interest and the other is at market rate. It's, the financial advisors, it's the cheapest deal in town. But since there's federal money involved and there's a lot of bureaucracy that the borrowers need to go through, and again, they want to ensure that all their borrowers are in the strongest position possible, representing when the trust goes out and sells its bonds.
And for a municipal sewage authority, it literally would not exist but without your service agreement, it couldn't finance anything substantial. So it's important to the viability of the system. And you know, Jason outlined some of the projects, but they're important projects. You know, infiltration into your water system, what that means is that your sewer pipes are leaking and rainwater gets into it, so you're treating rainwater. So it makes the plant that less efficient. The cost goes up, so you want to make sure that, you know, so there are, you know, the integrity of your 36 breaks, you know, you lose sewer service, it's a catastrophe, literally, environmental and health-wise. So they're important projects, but as I said, it's a kind of, I wanted Jason to come in and explain to council, because this is the first time council is seeing this, but it is not an uncommon occurrence, and as I said, it's a continuation of you just reestablishing what the obligation that you have, you know, and without the service agreement, you would not have a sewer authority.
How long is the loan for? Like, what's the,
Again, going through DEP, the engineers, they determined the terms of the loans. First, what the Sewage Authority is going to do, they're going to do a short-term construction loan for these projects. So it's really just a draw. So at the end of the day, when they're about, I think it's 95% complete with the project, then the trust tells us, okay, you're ready for permanent financing. And then when you go into permanent financing, they determine the useful life of the project. You know, they're 20, 30-year projects. It varies in between there.
is that common?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. There's a schedule that when you borrow money, if you borrow money to buy something that only has a useful life of 7 years, then you can only get a bond for 7 years. But typically, these kind of improvements, road improvements, sewer improvements, water improvements, have a 20 to 30-year life. They might be a little less for the equipment for the plant, but it's more for things that you put in the ground.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pick up on this is the first time through for several of us, so, and my question is really a sideline. It's not a finance question, but it's having, one of our first experiences obviously was with the Fifth Avenue situation, which has nothing to do with you, but it has to do with oversight of big projects. Where in the process, where in documents, you know, how do we protect the city? How do we protect ourselves that in terms of project oversight? Where does that appear anywhere? And like I said, it's not finance. It's just, you know, as a project scope is written out.
Well, how do we do that for city projects?
Yeah.
Well, that's a business administrator question, probably.
Yeah.
Well, it's done through the engineers, so whatever projects that they're doing, they'll bid it out. They have a Mazers there, sewer authority engineer, and they'll have the oversight for the project. And they'll work with us if it impacts any city property. For example, I think the force main is down by the lake on off of Hoey Avenue. I met with the mayor and I and went over some of the details there, and they're going to work hand in hand with us in repaving that road and opening up as a path. So the oversight is between the city and the sewer authority, and we actively work together with them.
Okay.
I think that's the answer to your question.
Yeah. Okay. You know, the point of my question was, you know, how do we make sure that we avoid situations like that? I appreciate your answer and acknowledge that. It's just that as one of the first times through with the experience, it was like.
Well, listen, we certainly use best practices the same as they would use.
Yeah.
And I would tell you arguably that some projects just don't go as planned.
Right.
And North Fifth Avenue is a project that did not go as planned. And it's sort of unusual. We've done a lot of work in the last number of years in street work and drainage work, and we haven't had anything delayed us like that did.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your question, and it's a legitimate question.
Yeah.
But, you know, we'll have to work through it like we would any other project.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thanks, Kevin.
Anyone else?
No.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. And next, review of regular meeting agenda. Is there any questions?
I had a question about the resolution for the Konica machines. And this is just from a cost savings perspective.
What resolution?
What
Anita, what resolution, I'm sorry, the number?
It's 65, 16618,
contract.
yeah.
16618.
Yeah. Just the reason why I'm asking the question, because where I work, we went through a major cost-saving initiative with copying. And I don't know if, paper costs and all that, I don't know if there's an opportunity in here for cost savings types of things, as simple as, the default is double-sided copying, that people or departments have codes, so you know who's doing copying and you kind of can keep track of that.
We do
Do
have
we
that in place in our color copy machines.
Okay,
This machine is replaced an existing machine
Right.
out of the operating budget of the police department,
right.
under New Jersey State contract.
Yeah, and Kevin, again, my question was a little bit broader of, is that something that we could look into as a cost-saving measure that might be significant?
We could certainly look at anything,
Yeah,
sure.
okay. And so I was asking, just in terms of the capabilities of the machine, that if we wanted to do something, we're getting a machine that would be able to help us do it.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yes.
perfect. Okay, good.
If I may, we just instituted, similar to what you were talking about called paper cuts.
Mm-hmm.
And what it's done is it's drastically reduced the usage, and then we have authorization codes for everyone down there.
Okay.
We just did that in the past 6 to 9 months.
Good.
So anyone who goes to the copier, you have a code, we can tell you who went there, what time you went there, and what it's done is it's drastically reduced that. These two
Right.
machines, when we currently just instituted the programming, they didn't have it, and they'll be able to connect with the other existing machines that we have.
Great. Just what I was hoping to hear. Great.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any questions? No? All right, next, I need a motion to close.
So move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now I need a motion to adopt a resolution to go into executive session for the following items: personnel matters, housing authority appointment, and also attorney-client communications.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Dangler?
Yes.
Mr. Viera?